My mother-in-law stood up at my wedding reception and told 200 people I would never truly be part of the family. She smiled when she said it. Crystal clinked. Someone gasped. My husband froze beside me. I'd spent 3 years bracing for this moment. 3 years of cold stares and snide comments. 3 years of being just good enough to date her son, but never good enough to marry him. And now, on the happiest day of my life, she'd finally said it out loud. I thought that was the worst of it. Then my father-in-law stood up. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. He cleared his throat. "I have something to add to that," he said. The room went silent. What was he about to say? "Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop your location below and hit subscribe. You're going to want to see how this ends. But first, let me tell you how we got here." I met Daniel 4 years ago at a marketing conference in Boston. He was smart, kind, and made me laugh. I fell hard. I'm a marketing consultant. I built my business from the ground up. No trust fund. No safety net. Just me, a laptop, and a lot of late nights. Daniel came from old money. The kind of family that has portraits in the hallway and a summer house with a name. I didn't care about that. I loved him, not his last name. Our first dinner with his parents should have been a warning. His mother looked at me like I was a stain on her tablecloth. "Where did you say you went to school?" she asked. I told her. "State University. Full scholarship." "How quaint," she said. She didn't smile. His father, Richard, was different. He asked about my work. He listened. At the end of the night, he shook my hand and said, "You're good for him." But his wife, my future mother-in-law, Diane, made her position clear. At the engagement party, she seated my parents at the back. She introduced me to her friends as Daniel's friend. I started keeping a folder. Screenshots, emails, timestamps. I learned that in my business. Document everything. I had 46 screenshots by the time Daniel proposed. I thought the wedding would be safe. Public. Witnesses. I was wrong. 2 months before the wedding, Diane called me. "Come to the house," she said. "We need to discuss something." I went alone. Daniel was traveling for work. She sat me down in her sitting room. Poured tea I didn't drink. Then she slid a document across the table. "It's a post-nuptial agreement," she said. "Just a formality." I scanned the first page. It wasn't a formality. It waived any claim I'd ever have to the family estate. It removed me from consideration for the family foundation board, a role Richard had privately offered me the week before. "This is about protecting the family legacy," Diane said. Her voice was smooth, practiced. I looked up. "I'm marrying Daniel," I said. "Not your portfolio." Her face changed. The mask slipped. "Then let me be clear," she said. "You will never be one of us. You don't have the background, the breeding, the class." I stood up. "I'll see myself out," I said. She stood too, leaned in. "Sign it or I'll make sure everyone sees exactly what you are. A gold digger. An opportunist. I will ruin you at that wedding." I didn't sign. I walked out, and I knew she meant every word. The wedding ceremony was perfect. Daniel's vows made me cry. My father walked me down the aisle. Even Diane smiled for the photos. I let myself hope. Then came the reception. Toast started. My maid of honor went first. Sweet, funny. The room laughed. Then Diane stood. She raised her glass. Diamonds caught the light on her wrist. "My son has always had a big heart," she began. The room quieted. He chose love over compatibility. Over common sense, some might say. A few people laughed, nervous. "I'm sure she'll never truly be part of this family. But we'll be polite." She sipped her champagne. The room fractured. Some people clapped. Some stared. My parents looked crushed. My hands shook. I couldn't breathe. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. But he didn't stand. He didn't say a word. 3 years of biting my tongue. 3 years of saving screenshots and swallowing insults. And she'd won. In front of everyone. I thought about the folder on my phone. But what could I do? It was already done. Then Richard stood up. Richard didn't raise his glass. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I'd like to add some context to my wife's toast," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Diane's smile faltered. Richard unfolded the paper. He held up his phone. "This is a text message my wife sent me 3 weeks ago, May 6th. 10:47 p.m., he read it aloud. "I'll humiliate her at the wedding. She needs to know her place. If Daniel won't end it, I will." The room went dead silent. He turned his phone toward the projector screen we'd used for our photo slideshow. The message filled the screen. Diane's name at the top. The timestamp. Her words undeniable. People leaned forward. Someone gasped. Diane's face drained of color. "That's private," she hissed. "How dare you? You sent it to me," Richard said. "You promised to humiliate my daughter-in-law at her own wedding." He looked around the room. "And you just did." Guests started murmuring. A few stood to see the screen better. Diane reached for his arm. He stepped back. "I'm not finished," he said. Diane tried to laugh it off. "Darling, you're tired. You've been unwell." "My memory is perfect," Richard said. "So is my documentation." She stood. Her chair scraped loud against the floor. "This is embarrassing," she said to the room. He's confused. "I think we should sit down," Richard said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut. "Sit down or I'll read the rest." Diane's brother half stood from his table. He looked between them, uncertain. My heart pounded. This was spiraling. Daniel finally stood. He looked at his mother. "Let him speak," he said. Diane sat. The room held its breath. I realized what Richard was doing. He wasn't just defending me. He was ending this, publicly, with witnesses. No more whispers. No more private cruelty. If this went any further, the family would fracture. Permanently. I wasn't sure I wanted that. I wasn't sure I could stop it. Richard pulled a folder from under his chair. A folder. He'd come prepared. "Let me tell you what else I found," he said. He opened it slowly. The room leaned in. Diane's hands gripped the edge of the table. Her knuckles went white. What else did he have? Richard pulled out a bank statement. "This is a wire transfer from the family foundation account," he said. "April 14th. The same day I told Diane we were voting you onto the board." He held it up. $200,000. Transferred to my wife's personal account. The room erupted in whispers. He placed the statement on the table and pulled out a printed email. "This is from April 16th. My wife to the foundation director." He read it aloud. "Make her feel unwelcome. She doesn't belong in our circle. Find compliance reasons to remove her before the first meeting." Someone at the back said, "Oh my God." Diane stood again. "That's out of context." "It's dated," Richard said. "It's signed. It's in your words." He turned to me. "She stole from the foundation to keep control. And she tried to sabotage you before you even started." I couldn't speak. I'd suspected she wanted control. I hadn't realized she'd commit fraud to keep it. The foundation was Richard's legacy, his life's work, and she'd treated it like her personal checking account. Richard's voice didn't waver. "I have copies for the board. And for our attorney." Richard set the papers down. He looked at his wife. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost sad. "My wife grew up poor," he said. Diane flinched. "She changed her name, reinvented herself, spent 30 years building an image." He turned to the room. "She told everyone her maiden name was Miller. From Vienna. Old world." He paused. "It was Miller. From Akron." A guest near the front whispered, "Is that true?" Diane didn't answer. Richard looked at me. "When she saw you, confident, successful, proud of where you came from, she saw the girl she used to be. The one she tried to erase. I finally understood. It was never about me. It was about her shame. Her fear that someone would see past the diamonds and the surname and the summer house. She thought if she controlled the family narrative, no one would ask questions," Richard said. "But I always knew, and I never cared." He faced Diane. I loved you anyway. Until you made cruelty your currency. The room was silent. Diane's mask was gone. She looked small, caught. Richard turned back to me. Now I knew exactly what to do, he said. Richard reached into the folder one last time. He pulled out a single-page letter. Official letterhead. This morning at 9 a.m. I resigned as co-trustee of the family foundation, he said. Diane's eyes went wide. I installed an independent board. 3 members. None of them family. He held up the letter. My wife no longer has signatory access to any foundation account. He set it on the table. I also filed a full financial disclosure with our estate attorney. Every transfer. Every email. Time-stamped and logged. He looked at me and Daniel. This is your family now. I'm making sure no one can take that from you. My throat tightened. He'd planned this for weeks. Maybe months. He'd waited until the wedding. Until there were 200 witnesses. He'd made it public so Diane couldn't bury it. Couldn't spin it. He'd protected the foundation. And he'd protected me. Daniel reached for my hand. His eyes were wet. Richard picked up his champagne glass. I have one more thing to say, he said. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. He turned to me. To my daughter-in-law. Richard's voice broke just slightly. You saved my son from a passionless merger his mother tried to arrange 2 years ago. You brought honesty into a family that trades in appearance. I hadn't known about the merger. Daniel's hand tightened on mine. You are family, Richard said. The best part of it. He raised his glass higher. You didn't marry into this family. You earned your place at this table. Something the rest of us were simply born into. Tears ran down my face. Richard's voice grew firm again. To the bride. The only person here who truly deserves to be. Half the room stood. Glasses lifted. My father in the back stood first. My mother was crying. Diane sat frozen, powerless. Richard reached into his jacket one last time. He handed me an envelope. Your formal appointment to the foundation board, he said. Signed by every trustee, effective immediately. I opened it with shaking hands. 4 signatures. Dated that morning. Diane's name was crossed out. A guest at the next table started clapping. Then another. Then the whole room. Diane tried one last time. You'll regret this, she said to Richard. Her voice shook. All of you will. Her brother at the side table shook his head. He looked away. No one came to her defense. Daniel stood. He faced his mother. We'll talk about boundaries tomorrow, he said. Tonight you need to leave. She stared at him. At me, at Richard. Then she picked up her purse and walked out. The door closed behind her. The room exhaled. The band started playing again. And for the first time in 3 years, I finally felt like I could breathe. The week after the wedding, Diane moved to the summer house. Richard stayed in the main residence. He filed for separation 2 weeks later. I didn't celebrate that. I didn't want their marriage to end. But Richard told me quietly that it had ended years ago. He'd just finally stopped pretending. I joined the foundation board in May. My first meeting, the other trustees welcomed me by name. One of them said, We've been waiting for someone like you. See, we launched a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. We called it the Miller Fund. Richard smiled when I told him the name. Daniel started therapy. Years of enmeshment don't heal overnight. But he showed up. He did the work. We set boundaries with Diane. We put them in writing. She could attend family holidays if she followed 3 rules. No comments about my background. No financial discussions. No undermining our decisions. She violated them twice. Both times we left. The 3rd time she followed them. It wasn't warmth. But it was peace. Some of Richard's relatives took Diane's side. We don't see them anymore. Others reached out privately to apologize. We meet them for dinner now and then. My parents come to every holiday, Richard insists. Last year, my younger sister got married. Richard offered to walk her down the aisle when our father's hip surgery kept him in a wheelchair. Diane sent regrets. 6 months after the wedding, she sent me an email. 3 sentences. I was wrong. I was cruel. I'm sorry, I wrote back. One line. I accept your apology. The boundaries stand. She never replied. I didn't need her to. A year later, the foundation funded 18 scholarships. 18 kids who worked 2 jobs to pay for community college, who came from towns like mine. Richard and I handed out the awards together. That's my family now. Not the one I married into. The one I chose, and the one that chose me back. Here's what I learned. Family isn't about blood or pedigree or how much money your parents had. It's about respect, integrity, showing up. Diane spent 30 years trying to outrun her past. I spent 30 years honoring mine. Only one of us is free. So let me ask you, have you ever had to set a boundary at a family event? What happened? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this resonated, hit subscribe. We're just getting started. One last thing. This story is a fictionalized dramatization. It's not legal or financial advice, but it is a reminder that you belong where you're valued, not where you're tolerated. Thanks for listening.